Hi, this is Dr. Erin Williams. I'm coming to you, my English 204 students, with a very brief presentation about how to evaluate sources. This is based on the Easy Writer, chapter 39, and is tailored to our wiki assignment and my specific example genre analysis, which is of the syllabus. So you'll have to take in mind that what I'm going to use as an example is the syllabus. You'll be thinking of your genre of choice as I go along, I do hope. So we're getting to the point now where we need to start drafting and posting things to the references page so that we can all have access to a set of resources about how to write in the health sciences. It's pretty exciting, right? So that means we need to have some worthwhile sources. How can you make sure you've got worthwhile sources when you're doing any kind of research? This is a sort of basic guide with a little bit more specificity than you get in the textbook for our own assignment prompt for the Collaborative Wiki project. So, there's really just one rule I'm going to go over with you today about source evaluation. Everything follows from it. And it is know thy purpose, and what's entailed is that you should know thy audience. So what does that mean? Knowing thy purpose means you need to know why you need outside research. What do you hope it will contribute to your work? What kinds of information do you not have and do not have the time to generate that you need in order to have well-informed research or perspective? Now, choosing a set of sources appropriately also depends on what your audience would consider convincing. If your audience will be convinced by what Wikipedia says, great, cite Wikipedia. In an academic context, your audience expects scholarly research, peer-reviewed research, and so that's what you should be citing. In other words, your sources should be appropriate and credible. Now, what does that mean? Your sources should be appropriate to your purpose and your audience cares about the credibility of those sources, and you should too. What does that entail? You know a source is appropriate if it is useful to you, if you know your purpose, and this helps meet your purpose. You know your source is appropriate if it is fair, if it's trying to show both sides of the story, if it is relevant. That is, that it is on point, it's on topic, it doesn't stray too far off topic, and it is intended to be used for a purpose that's very much in alignment with your own purpose. You know a source is appropriate if it's recent. Now, this is especially true of the sciences. It's less true of the humanities because we have a long history of thought, and that thought, even though it came from Aristotle and not very recent, is still more relevant than newer things, depending on some of the research that we do. Especially for this project, though, you'll want more recent research because styles of writing change all the time. You know your source is appropriate if it is accurate. That is, you're not being given bad advice about how to write. How will you know if your source is accurate? That requires a little bit of research and fact-checking, and especially since you've been gathering examples of your genres, this should be relatively easy for you to judge. You know your source is appropriate if it is unbiased. This goes back to fair, but it's less about making sure all sides of the story are covered, and more about making sure that even if you do come down on a side, you haven't done so in order to push some agenda. You're not trying to weight the scales, even though you've appeared to be fair. And you know your source is appropriate for scholarly, academic, or professional research if it's specialized. If you've got something written by somebody who's an expert in the field that they're writing in, then it's more likely to be a specialized source as opposed to one written for a more general audience where the research is not quite so expert, technical, or specialized. Now, how can you tell if a source is credible? Research that's published in scholarly or peer-reviewed journals is credible. We generally in the Academy accept that as credible. Peer-reviewed means you've got research that has been verified, double-checked, tested out by people who are also experts in that area, or peers. They are peers to the person who wrote it. They are experts as well in that particular area of research or thought. You can also tell if a source is credible if it's written by an author who is an expert in that topic. Somebody who has done some research, is a scholar in that area of work. We're usually okay with saying, yes, this source is credible because it was written by an expert. Okay, so what does that mean for actually evaluating a source? Let me go through an example with you. I'm going to do an example of a poor choice of source for my research. I'm trying to figure out how to write syllabi, so I just go to Google and type in how to write a syllabus, and I come up with an ehow.com source. So let me click on this. I've already got it pulled up over here. And take a look. Okay, how to write a syllabus. I need to find out if this is a useful source. Okay. If you are teaching a class or workshop, a syllabus is a necessity. The syllabus allows you to communicate everything your students need. Oh, okay, that's fine. See the instructions here. Determine the objective of the class or workshop. You want to be clear about what's being taught. Okay, set the dates for the course you're teaching. Okay. Explain as explicitly as possible what is supposed to be covered. Provide assignment due dates. Explain class expectations. Set the attendance policy. Add your contact information. Okay, that seems fine enough. Let me go back up to the top. Okay, alright. So let's go through the criteria I just listed out. What's the purpose here? Well, honestly, the purpose of this particular page might be to help me figure out how to write a syllabus, but it might also be to sell ads. There seem to be a lot of ads here. Let's see, what about being fair? Well, unfortunately, the commercial interest of this particular page and website could compromise the fairness of the information here. It's harder to trust information as being fair if it comes from a commercial site because they have a stake. They want to sell ad space. They want to keep people coming back to this. So I don't know if we've considered all sides of the story here. It's less of an issue when it comes to things like how to write a syllabus, but it might really be an issue for something that's a little bit more hot button topic. Is this relevant? It certainly seems to be relevant to my task. Well, everything except for the ads. And what about recent? I took a pretty good look at this page, and all I could find in terms of a date was the copyright date. So this page could be as old as 1999, it could be as recent as 2013. It's hard to tell. One of those is quite far back, and the other one's pretty recent. And what about its accuracy? Well, I can tell that it's missing information about the fact that many parts of a syllabus are required to be there. So, for example, plagiarism policies and the course information section of our syllabus. At the University of St. Francis, those sorts of things are required to be there. So, this source doesn't quite explain that. Maybe instructors need to go and consult with people who are administrators to make sure about whether or not they've got all of the necessary parts of a syllabus. Alright, is this source unbiased? Again, it's hard to trust that this source is unbiased since it is a commercial site and has a vested interest in making money. And what about its specialization? Well, it certainly doesn't seem to be too specialized. It's pretty general, right? It's more like a newspaper article than a research article. Okay, what about its credibility? Well, the publisher is not scholarly, and this doesn't seem to be peer-reviewed. After all, it's just written by an eHow contributor, and it can't be peer-reviewed if there are all of these redundant sites or pages. It seems like, gosh, this is the same thing over and over. Is anybody editing this stuff? And of course, because the author is unknown, there's no way to judge whether the author has any expertise in this area. So this is a poor example. This would be a poor source. My audience would not be convinced by this. There's no reason to be. It might be useful just as a starter for me, but not for my research. So I need some scholarly input. I'm going to go to the library. I'm going to go to the databases. Now, I already know, because I'm an educator, about a database called ERIC. I'm going to go to E and scroll down a little bit. ERIC is the Education Resources Information Center. So I'm going to click here and do just a basic search. I wonder if there's anything out there about the syllabus as a genre. Gosh, there's quite a bit. And a lot of it seems to be very much to the point of what I'm trying to research. It seems to be appropriate to my purpose. For example, recommended syllabus components. What do higher education faculty include in their syllabi? Oh, fantastic. Okay. It comes from a journal, scholarly, since it's here in one of the databases that shows scholarly research. And it seems to be relatively recent. So I'm going to click here to get more information about this. What you see here is the abstract. I could read this, whoops, starts right here, to make sure that this article is going to be to the point, that it's appropriate, that it's relevant for my purpose. Okay, I would like to read more about this, so I might go over here to direct link and see about getting access to this article. I'm here at the homepage for the Journal on Excellence in College Teaching, which is where this article can be found. I could click here, and I don't actually have access to this through our library. I'd have to sign in. However, as you know, from taking the quiz last week, you can get access to articles like this through our interlibrary loan system. All right. At any rate, so let's say I get access to the article and I read it, and it turns out to be a good source. That is, it is relevant and accurate and unbiased and specialized, and it is fair. I already know about the credibility of the publisher and the author, but I would have to read the whole thing in order to know about its appropriateness. Now, a short word, if you decide to use a book, do feel free to skim the book or just read the introduction chapter to help get a sense of the overall contents of the book. So let me go back to the PowerPoint here. So let's say I decide to use that article that I just found. I'm not going to give you the citation here just for the sake of space. This would be an example of an annotation and evaluation for that article. The annotation is a summary, what was in the article, and the evaluation is about whether it is useful for my particular research project, which is the Collaborative Wiki project. So I will post this sample annotation and evaluation to the collaborative wiki project separately from the references page because I don't want you to get confused about the syllabus, just so that you can see what it looks like. So I hope this has been useful and that you'll find my sample annotation and evaluation helpful as you continue to work on the wiki.